Just had an amazing meditative experience at the place where I also had this nice insights yesterday in the sharing of information on the divine feminine and divine masculine. And I really felt this was a powerful place to be straight in between, with like Mount Kailash in the back, full support, full strength, and then looking over, meditating over this gorgeous view. I meditated and practiced my mantras that I got from my guru in Ujjain, and I used my mala that I got in Kolegala. And after the meditation, like I really felt it was really powerful. I really was able to go into it like very intensely, like there's nobody around, so I could really like put full force around my mantras, around my voice and my vibrations in my body, and it was amazing. It was really cool. After that, I just was sitting a while contemplating different experiences from the trip, all the things that I've gone through, and trying to make some intentional connections to what was going on here and the myths around Mount Kailash and the legends and everything. And at that point, certain connections started to become known to me, and I started to journal that I would like to share. And while walking to our guest house over there, I'll share the details with you, the insights. So the point that when it kind of all started to roll, like the information started to come in, was when I started to make some connections to the Kalki movie that we've watched in Bangalore together with Ritwik. It was like, Bangalore is of course a very westernized city, and there's consumerism, and it's full on commercialized, but there's always still some possibility to have some connection to interesting insights and esoteric knowledge, and movies are a perfect example of that. And in movies, there's always a balance between information that they put in there, the people that are in the know, that are in these secret societies like the Illuminati, which is like what everybody knows, but yeah, it's become a little bit of a cliche to talk about that. But just so that people understand what I'm talking about, these kinds of things. Also, what it is happening in Hollywood is of course happening in a very similar way in Bollywood of India and the different kinds of film industries, movie industries that they have there. So what I'm trying to say is that within these movies there's always, or sometimes they bring out a movie where, like The Matrix or Dune or any kind of like big important movies, Lord of the Rings, where there's always hidden knowledge inside there. They reveal certain things about our reality or our future, which they are in the know of, but they mask it with a lot of sci-fi and other kinds of stuff. So there's like a little bit of real knowledge in there that you should, like elements, symbols, objects that you should pay attention to, which are esoteric knowledge, and then spun around some kind of narrative, some kind of plot which is not in touch with real reality, or like the dates, for example, in this Kalki movie are not necessarily the real dates of when these things are going to happen, and how these things will unfold. But the elements in there definitely have footing in real concepts, real things that are going on. And that's what I want to dive into a little bit, because there's a lot of myth and legend around Mount Kailash, and one of these is that Kailash is the center of the world, axis mundi, where the axis around which the world is spinning. If it is spinning, at least in this simulation, it feels like we're spinning. We experience it as spinning in this reality. But it's also the claimed entrance to inner Earth, or it has some kind of relation to Shambhala. And inner Earth and Shambhala are within the Truva community, of course, very familiar topics and very interesting to do all kinds of research into and digging, and there's a lot of stuff to be found. But the knowledge that I always like to refer to, and which I enjoy most, and I think has the best footing in real information, real data, and real esoteric knowledge, which is found in old books, is what the Archaics channel is talking about, which I have been referring to Jason Bashir's and his work on the Archaics YouTube channel. In the work of Jason, he mentions a lot the underworld, the inner Earth, kind of catacombs that you can see the inside of the world as like a honeycomb with like huge big caverns and spaces where entire civilizations can live and exist. And there are civilizations like the Mayas, which have, of course, legends of fleeing into cave systems, into caverns under the earth, into the inner Earth, while they were chased down by the conquistadors, the Spanish. And in that way, there are many different legends of people fleeing into the inner Earth, and there's spoken to be all kinds of entrances to the inner Earth, to these kinds of cave systems, to these kinds of big cavern complexes where like ancient civilizations could be existing, could be living right now. Because there's also all kinds of research, and I should kind of get to the point, sorry for that, but there's plenty of known that there's light, that plants that emit light in the dark, and that there's water systems inside the earth, and so things can live inside the earth, and you can build. It's reasonable, scientifically reasonable, that there would be civilizations living inside the world, and that it's possible to exist there. So the whole Himalaya prefecture, the mountain range, has a lot of relation to these kinds of lore, to these kinds of legends of entrances to the inner Earth, and Mount Kailash is one of them. And Shambhala is the name of one of these cities, one of these places where there are most certainly several of all over the world. But Shambhala, and then now I'm bringing it back to the movie reference of Kalki. Shambhala is also known in or made known or used as the liberated, like a civilization of people that are living outside of control of the complex, of all the chaos, of all the bad things that are happening all out, like in the outer world, in the external world. Shambhala here is kind of like, has some kind of resemblance to how do you say, like in Atlas Shrugged, there in that book there's also New Atlantis, like a place which is covered by some kind of technological shields where People are not able to see it from the outside, and also has some protection, some force field around it for weapons and things to come in, so that they are like able to live there without anybody knowing that there is some kind of civilization going on there. And they also, in that movie, they drive into a mountain, which is like some kind of technology, camouflage the entrance, making it look like it's just a mountain. Maybe something similar, some kind of similar old ancient technology is used there as well. Could be. Because if you would just think about really ancient old civilizations, as what I have talked about from the Vapor Canopy times, where they had like all kinds of knowledge which about for technologies, for weapons, for doing things with our bodies that we are completely unaware of right now. We don't know about this. And this kind of camouflage technology, protective field technology, is easily possible for that kind of old civilizations and knowledge to exist and to be used. If it would be that these kinds of old ancient civilizations would be hiding out there or existing there. So the whole Shambhala thing is one part which I wanted to highlight, one topic within Kalki and the Kailash legends. Mount Kailash is also referred to as the world tree. And within Shambhala, in the movie of Kalki, you also see that there is this big, huge, holy tree, which is basically representing the tree of life or the world tree, in there as well, that it's inside Shambhala. So it could be also in that way related to Mount Kailash. But the world tree and a tree, big tree, in old I think old Egyptian language, the name for what we call now, I think the Greek word for it is the pyramid, is a pyramid. Is if you take the word, I have to look this up, but basically there is some relation with what the ancient Egyptian civilization called what's now known as the Giza Pyramid, the Great Pyramid, and which translates to a tree. So there is a connection between a pyramid and a tree, and the world tree, the tree of life, the tree of knowledge. And we'll get back to this pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza. But first, I want to make another pyramid resemblance within the movie of Kalki and some stuff that's going on in that pyramid. Because we see this huge upside down pyramid, which is referred to as, and if you go in there, inside there, it's basically a big building, big construction, where inside people can live, and which is called the complex, and it's basically the place where all the elites live and have their lavish lifestyle in insanely beautiful paradise kind of environments, and having these lavish parties with all kinds of in relations to what we know now as the Illuminati and those secret societies and the rituals that go on there with the masks and all these kinds of things. Like a lot of that kind of references is also known within, or made known or made visible within the Kalki movie. And what's interesting is that that's an upside down pyramid. So pyramid with the point up is referring to the good the good side, the way that things are good, and the pyramid pointing down is basically upside down, the opposite of the good, which is the bad side. And if you place these pyramids upside down and normal peak up on top of each other, it's like the Star of David, the alchemical symbol of the union of the divine and the masculine and the feminine. The upwards pointing pyramid is representing the masculine, and downward pointing is representing the feminine. There's all kinds of alchemic, esoteric knowledge between these kinds of symbols and geometries. Okay. So what we see there in the Kalki movie is that Shambhala and the world tree, the good side, the world tree representation to the pyramid is going on there, and the upside down tree, the complex, the bad side, ruling over our current reality, the bad side where the elites live into. But they need to be both there in order for the universe to unfold, which is a different thing. The oxygen deficiency is really getting to me, which you might notice. But it's really beautiful and gorgeous to walk around. So these elites living inside this pyramid is like guarded from everything, from the poor people, from the workers. Everything around it is a very recognizable situation that's going on here as well. And what's interesting about the complex and this, you never, like, it's really hard to kind of like narrow down who is at the top of that elite pyramid, but throughout that movie we are kind of like, and there's so much more relationships, also like sucking out the life force energy out of pregnant women and the babies, and using that energy for eternal youth of these elites. All kinds of elements related to topics that if I call them here I'm gonna get my content banned, so I won't be doing that, but it starts with an A and it's been sucked out of terrified children in a very, very similar way to keep these people eternal youth. Okay, but if we go back to who is at the top of that pyramid in the Kalki movie, it is this person that is residing in continuous meditation and is thriving on this elixir, this life force energy that's sucked out of these pregnant women from unborn children. What's interesting, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the movie, maybe I'm gonna spoil one thing. That person, I don't need to spoil who he is or what he represents within the whole legend, the Hindu legend, but this person is staying inside that pyramid. He's residing there in meditation in that pyramid, which is a beautiful parallel to Mount Kailash being known for being the place where Shiva is residing in eternal meditation just as well. Maybe until the moment that he needs to wake up or take action in playing his part, playing his role in returning eternal cycles of construction and destruction and creation of our universe. But so there's a beautiful parallel of a mythical legend who I'm not going to spoil the name of, residing in eternal meditation from really vapor canopy times 6,000 years ago. He's spending his time in 6,000 years of meditation in that pyramid. And the other person, the giant, who is also big, who's kind of like the opposite, turns out like to be the main, like one of the good guys on the opposite side of always this eternal clash between good and bad, and just in forcing each other in progress and unfoldment of reality of the universe. That other person, he's also spending his time in meditation, the giant inside the temple, where he's given this sign, like once his eye returns to him, the third eye, and it starts to glow, it is known that the Kalki has returned and that he needs to fulfill his cursed purpose, of which he got in the beginning, of having to live until the moment that the Kalki returns, and he needs to protect him so that the Kalki can grow up and become strong and live his purpose of being the savior, to end that cycle of destruction or of badness going on, and to start a new cycle of. Okay, and the last thing that I want to draw your attention to, or like that I want to point out from the movie, with just having mentioned the Kalki and the return, prophesized return of the savior, this avatar of Vishnu once again, and pyramid mythology, is that in previous presentations or talks that I did with you, I also talked about this in the Sandipani ashram, that there is all these different incarnations of Vishnu coming to save humanity from where it's going. And the next one, and there's also one prophesied for the end times to return, a avatar, a bringer of divine wisdom and knowledge, the connection to liberation of what is going on in there, moksha, in reality, stepping out of the eternal cycle of life and death, the rebirth cycle, the incarnation cycle, and going to the heavens, or what else may there be after liberation, stepping outside of the simulation, maybe having completed our training program here, having our souls perfected, whatever is going on, and what the purpose is of this construct, of this reality. But relating back to the archaics research, and you should really check it out, he refers, and he did a lot of research on the big pyramid of Giza, how basically this is one big calendar in stone, which you can also use for prophesizing through understanding the cycles of the phoenix, as what I've said, and also in that very first presentation, with the end of the cycle nearing and coming to a close, which he drew out of his research from the Giza pyramid. And also the prophesied return of the builder of the pyramid, the one that used this mega construction that has survived all the destructions, all the cataclysms that humanity, or that the world, our reality, has gone through, and within it preserved all the knowledge of this situation, this simulation that we're in, this cyclical nature of civilizations rising and coming down, and in that way also prophesizing the end times and the return of the chief cornerstone, which is referred to as the builder, the architect of the pyramids, which is basically the person that brought us that divine wisdom about what is going on here and how we can step out of it, how we can be liberated from it, moksha. And this person that he refers to in the time that the pyramid got built, in the Vapor Canopy times, is Enoch. And Enoch, as I have also written some articles about, I'll refer it here in the description box below, is, in my belief, a very clear comparison to other kinds of avatars of Vishnu and bringers of divine information and wisdom to us. And within that pyramid, he is also, or within that Phoenix cycle, that information that he got to distill from the pyramid of Giza and the prophesied end times, and this person coming back, there is a beautiful parallel between the Kalki returning around the end times to finish off this cycle, to liberate the people that can step out of it, and to basically start a new cycle and start this whole new cycle, this whole new iteration of the simulation where everything is going to play out again. But basically, it being a hugely important moment for people that want to step out of this incarnation cycle, be liberated, go to the heavens, or complete our training program. That's the moment that we need to pay attention to, and it's, like I referred, going to happen around the coming 50 to 100 years. And you should just really check out Archaic's YouTube channel to really get the details and the calendrics of this. Right, I'm just giving you an broad overview of understanding it from the perspective of what I am going through here and thinking I am understanding. So, whoa, big presentation, big download. We'll see how we're gonna work this in, but I'm happy to get all of this out, and it's just amazing to have this opportunity here too, and I feel that I can really eloquently express this to you all through being in touch and connecting through this thing. But now I'm gonna check in with my friend that I just met here.